And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 33 of season 3, let me talk to you about a few quick things. First off, if you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, click the link in our description below or in the YouTube bio to follow us on Instagram, because we post clips, debate topics, hot takes during games, things like that on our Instagram. So if you aren't so much into long form content, but happen to be tuning into this week's episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram. Also, when you look below your screen, there is an arrow button. That is the share button. You can share your favorite Detroit Pistons podcast, Revved Up 906, on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all the above. If you know fellow Detroit Pistons fans that you think would like the podcast, you can share it to them over text message and other social media platforms. So we would greatly appreciate that if you helped share our podcast. Without further ado, let's get into episode number 33 of season 3. It's always good to get housekeeping out of the way at the beginning of the episode. And we have a good episode for you guys today because, like every week, it seems there's more to talk about regarding the Detroit Pistons. And this week is just like every other week. We are going to be talking to you guys about the Jenkins signing to a 2-year deal by Trajan Langdon. Great move on his part. We're also going to talk about Jalen Duren pulling out of the NBA dunk contest, the Detroit Pistons getting a great statement win against the New York Knicks. And then, of course, like we wrap up every episode, each and every week, we will have our player shout outs of the last week. But we're going to start this episode with talking about Jalen Duren, how he pulled out of the dunk contest because of a recent knee injury. And most reports say he is still committed to the All-Star game, as his knee injury has healed well over the last couple of days. As of recording today, he is day-to-day and most likely probable to match up against the Charlotte Hornets tonight of the recording. I kind of want to talk about, before we get your thoughts, Ryan, and talk about our opinions on him pulling out, I want to read a quote from an ESPN article because they kind of give us an inside look as insiders in the NBA. This article goes on to say Detroit Pistons forward Jalen Duren is pulling out of the 2026 slam dunk contest due to a knee injury he suffered last week, according to multiple reports. Duren, a first-time All-Star, exited Thursday's game against the Wizards early due to right knee soreness and then sat out Friday night's win over the New York Knicks. Duren is being replaced by Orlando Magic rookie Jace Richardson, the son of two-time slam dunk champion Jason Richardson. Also may note that he is from Michigan. This makes me kind of excited for Jace Richardson, even though he did play for little brother Michigan State. I kind of had mixed emotions when he did sign up and agreed to do the slam dunk contest, just because big men kind of struggle with the dunk contest at times. Not saying I'm happy about this, because I do think he would have played and done very well in it, but we saw Andre Drummond kind of put up a goose egg in, I believe, 2019, 2018. But, guys like Aaron Gordon, Blake Griffin, Dwight Howard represented big men very, very well in the dunk contest. I don't think this is a huge surprise to us, Ryan, as we know that he is super excited. He famously said about the All-Star game, rather, because he had such a big smile on his face during the press conference talking about the All-Star game. I'm sure he does not want to jeopardize that opportunity by any means. What are some of your thoughts on Jalen Duren pulling out of the dunk contest?
At first, I was bummed out. I was sitting there going like, well, when the news broke that he was initially going to be in, I'm like, holy crap. Not only is
Yeah.
he potentially an all-star, but he's going to be in the dunk contest. And then you threw that on top of Cade being an all-star and an all-star
Mhm.
starter. And then throwing JB Bickerstaff, the fact that he is, excuse me, a coaching candidate. Well, he's representing the coaches in one
Mhm.
of the games, in the All-Star game, rather. So to me, when you throw in Duran being in the dunk contest, I'm like, holy well, like this is actually going to be a very exciting All-Star weekend for Pistons fans because not only did we get to see Cade ball out, we get to see JB do his thing, we get to see Jalen Duran in the All-Star game, which is amazing. But then you throw the cherry on top of the cake with Jalen Duran being in the dunk contest. I'm sitting there going like, oh, this is going to be entertaining. And then throw in
Hmm.
Amon-Ra St. Brown in the Celebrity All-Star game. Like we are going to have a great Detroit sports weekend with the
For
All-Star break.
sure.
But then obviously Duran's pulling out now. And so it's kind of like, oh, that kind of sucks. But like you said, I when I immediately thought of him pulling out, I thought of, well, maybe we saved an Andre Drummond appearance in the dunk contest. Maybe we saved that because that was pathetic. I'll just put it that way. I love Andre Drummond, but what he did was not spectacular at all. It looked like he just signed up to be a part of the event, which is pretty much what everybody does now. Um, but Jace Richardson, even though he went to Little Brother, Michigan family, Jason Richardson, like you're sitting there going like, okay, that's actually pretty cool. It's cool that a father-son duo has been in the dunk
Oh
contest
yeah.
or is going to be in the dunk contest now. So like I think that's cool. Now I will say there's some random Miami Heat guy that I have no idea who he is. So it's kind of like I understand that Jace Richardson is the replacement for Jalen Duren, but realistically it's that Miami Heat dude because I have no idea who he is and a lot of people don't know who he is. So I'm excited for Richardson. I think he's going to be just fine. He's not uber athletic compared to his dad, but he should still put up a decent outing. So yeah, I'm bummed, but I'd rather have him healthy for the All-Star game and actually participating in that than have him push his limits, get injured, well, re-aggravate his injury in the dunk contest, and then All-Star game comes and he's really not playing, and then all of a sudden it just builds up for the rest of the season as far as that injury goes. And so honestly, I'm fine with his decision to bow out. It makes sense. I'd rather see him in the All-Star game and be healthy long term than push his limits and re-aggravate an injury.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we also have to remember when dealing with the dunk contest is a lot of preparation goes in days before the contest actually happens. So that means he's most likely dunking triple four times more than he typically would be on a regular day. And we know how jumping can affect a knee and a possible tweak, these types of things. And I thought it was funny to bring up the Andre Drummond dunk contest just because it was so brutal, kind of like Cade's appearance in the 3-point contest. Um, but either way, as Detroit fans in general, really, not just Pistons fans, we're gonna have a lot of fun during All-Star break. And this also sets up, Jalen Duren having more attention in practice, not, and I said a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, about how I'm just kind of nervous with everything the Pistons are doing during the All-Star break. That it's like, okay, is this going to take away attention of what is happening during the end of the regular season? Because this is a big stretch where the Pistons can solidify themselves as the top dog in the East. And it kind of worries me, a young team having multiple appearances during All-Star break and the coach being a little distracted and pulled away during that weekend. It's like, okay, like, yes, is it probably fine? Am I being a worry wart? Of course, but I don't know. Time will tell to see how that can go because we've seen plenty of teams at the top of the Eastern Conference fall apart in the back half of the season. So, well, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Let's get talking about what everybody's been waiting for, and it's the Pistons signing Dennis Jenkins to a 2-year deal. To start the season, he was on a two-way contract. And I think this signing was absolutely brilliant by Trajan Langdon and his staff because the thing about two-way deal players is they can only play 50 games and they cannot play in the playoffs. And we are going to want Dennis Jenkins in the back half of this season and in the playoffs because he's just such a key part of what the Pistons are trying to do and moving the ball in that kind of talk. So I am going to read from ESPN article because I want to make sure we get all the details right, and then we'll talk about our own opinions and takes on this signing. Per Omari Sankova II of ESPN, he says Dennis Jenkins has earned a long-awaited promotion. Jenkins was reportedly upgraded from a two-way contract to the Detroit Pistons 15-man roster on Sunday, February 8th, signing a 2-year standard contract, a person with knowledge of the situation confirmed to the Free Press. Terms of the contract are unknown, though it features a team option from 2026 to 27 and uses part of the Pistons' 11.3 million biannual exception, per Shams, who was the first to break the news. To make room on the 50-man roster for Jenkins, the Pistons waived Dario Saric, acquired last week in the three-way deal that brought Kevin Huerter to the Detroit Pistons. It has been a long-awaited expected Jenkins would be bumped up to the main roster. People were kind of seeing this happening the last couple weeks as he has established himself as a core piece with the NBA's second best team. Well, that's a hot take by Omari, but we'll skip over that. Ryan, what are some of your first thoughts? I think that this impresses us even more, and maybe Trajan Langdon has a easy job just because the players have been playing so well. But I think we've been very impressed with Langdon's moves the last couple months. Where's your head at?
So when I thought of the possibility of Jenkins solidifying himself with our team this year, I mean, off-season wise, I'm sitting there going like, okay, there's a chance he actually does make the team, but
Yeah,
it really will determine whether or not Sasser is a go or Ivy is a go or how well, I mean, those two guys specifically, how well they play.
yeah.
And they didn't play up to par. Obviously, Sasser dealt with injury. Ivy wasn't the same. And so that gave Jenkins the opportunity to go out there and put on a show. And
Mhm.
last year, we saw glimpses of what he's been doing this year so far. And it's like, okay, this kid, if he actually put the right tools and pieces together, he could actually make an impact long term. And it wasn't like all there last year. He needed time in the G League. He needed time with the Motor City Cruise to really refine those skills. And then this year, when the opportunity was given to him, he just took it and ran with it. It was like he left Jaden Ivey and Marcus Sasser in the dust. And here he is earning, rather, let's just be honest, he's earned this contract. A lot of, if Trajan didn't know what he was doing, yes, this deal probably could have done sooner just because a lot, if you think of Nico Harrison with the Mavericks as an example, who is one of the worst general managers in NBA history. And a lot of people just signed players off of either free agency or they signed to a two-way deal coming out of the draft that are like, okay, this kid has potential, and we're gonna kind of force that up a little bit. No, Trajan Langdon instead sent Jenkins down to the G League and said, hey, you got to get your time down here. I want to see if you can really refine those skills, get better each and every day. And here we are sitting at what looks to be a phenomenal move on his part. If we look back at Trajan Langdon's history, he signed Jose Alvarado on a two-way contract coming out of the
Mhm.
draft. And at that time, everybody's like, okay, is this kid actually going to make it? Is he going to stick with this team? Who knows? But instantly within the first season of the two-way deal, boom, just like that. And Jose Alvarado is known for being one of the better point guards in the NBA. Obviously not all-star bound, obviously not like MVP, whatever you want to name it, but he's still a good, really good role player within any team. And there's a reason why the Knicks went out and traded for him because he's good. And when we brought in Jenkins, I'm sitting there going like, oh, okay, these two players side by side are almost identical. Like their abilities are just so like, holy wow, Trajan Langdon, you just drafted the same player. What just happened right there? And so to see his growth and the time that we've had between last year and this year is incredible. But then the move that he's making right now, and if you bring in the deadline, yes, we made the move for Kevin Huerter and Dario Saric which I thought at least Dario Saric maybe gets playing time, who knows? But the fact that they just kind of cut ties with him immediately because he knew, okay, I'm going to sign Jenkins. Honestly, when you think of the trade, it wasn't Kevin Herter and Dario Saric for Jaden Ivey in a first round pick swap. It was Kevin Herter and Dennis Jenkins with a first round pick swap for Ivy. And if you look at those two side by side, I'm taking what ended up happening over what the first result was, that first wave. Like Kevin Herter and Dennis Jenkins and a first round pick swap for Jaden Ivey, I'm sitting there going like, holy crap, we won that trade. But when it was originally Dario Saric and Kevin Herter with a first round pick swap, I'm sitting there going like, he's building out the rotation even more. But when I see what ended up coming and transpiring out of that move and Jenkins getting himself a full-time deal, I'm sitting there going like, okay, not only did he earn it, he's played out of his mind, but Trajan Langdon actually might be a genius. And it is so fun to watch the different moves he makes because you want to just break down every single move and really go like, okay, why is he making that move? What's going to transpire at the deadline? Everybody's saying, oh, we need a second player. He's obviously saying, no, we don't need a second player. Dennis Jenkins is playing out of his mind. So to me, this is really cool to see the amount of development that he's had between the first 2 years of his career and the fact that he's earned a full-time deal just like that. Obviously, Langdon knows what he's doing, and I would agree with you. I don't think he misses. And Chaz Lanier, who knows what he could be? Because right now he's at least capable of helping the team in any way possible. Who's to say what he could become in the future? And then even throw Bobby Klintman in the mix too. Like those two are big question marks as to what they could be going forward. Because if they're anything like Jenkins as far as the development plan goes, I am like extremely excited for those two guys coming up next. If we're getting Jenkins this fast and as far as his development and the impact he's making on this team.
Dennis Jenkins had a quote come out earlier this season during a press conference saying, going undrafted burns inside of me every single day. And it was that same scrappiness mindset that, he has to get his get back, prove people right, that led to his great averages this season, which right now he's averaging 8 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists on 43% shooting from the field in 16 minutes. And it was the averages we've seen this season and being able to do it consistently over 42 games he's played so far that showed him that, okay, he is different from a Jaden Ivey. Okay, he can play a little bit more consistent than a Marcus Sasser who could, Marcus Sasser can score at a great level, but it just on any given night, you don't know if he's going to give you 2 points. Where Dennis Jenkins, night in, night out, doesn't just find the bigs in the paint, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, but also when on the court with Cade Cunningham, plays very complimentary to Cade and makes sure he finds him in the not necessarily the pick and roll, but finding him in the short passing lanes, pushing the pace up the court and making the game fast. And I know that's what Pistons fans love to see because it reminds them of old Pistons basketball back in the day. And luckily right now we are in the glory days of Detroit Pistons basketball. And a big help to that was Dennis Jenkins. And I'm so glad he's finally gotten paid because he's proven that he deserves it. Also, a pretty cool thing that come out of this was a Rick Pitino tweet talking about Dennis Jenkins. Of course, he coached Dennis during his stint with the St. John basketball program. Rick Pitino says, "Congrats to my guy, Dennis Jenkins. No one is more deserving." So it's cool to see basketball greats that Dennis was mentored by, talking so highly of him because it shows us Pistons fans that we can believe in this guy. And there's not much more of a fun play style than Dennis Jenkins and what he brings to the Pistons. Fast pace, pass first, but then also rim rushing, taking his jumpers when he needs them. He can hurt you at all three levels. So as far as when teams come into Detroit and they're looking at the scouting report, Dennis Jenkins is a tough matchup for any second unit on any team in the NBA. And when you have a guy like Dennis Jenkins going into a playoff series and it's game 7, he's the kind of guy that shows up and hurts teams. And he reminds me of a role that a TJ McConnell had on the Indiana Pacers last year. You brought up Jose Alvarado, who Trajan Langdon made a move for with the New Orleans Pelicans. He's a hot commodity in today's NBA. New York Knicks, who we're going to talk about in a second, made a move for him. So I just really am happy with this move. I might have to get a Jenkins jersey now. I'm not quite sure. When we go to Detroit in April, that might have to be a purchase for me. Ryan, any last thoughts on this signing before we get into the next topic?
I think if anything, what's to come is very exciting basketball because you have Jenkins, who previously against the Knicks had 18 points, which is crazy. And
Yep.
obviously, the Knicks were missing a lot of their key guys. But outside of just that one game, we've owned the Knicks all season long. So I'm just going to throw that out there. But no, the way he's playing right now, 18 minutes, 18 points. I love efficiency. And when you can give me the exact amount of points and the exact amount of minutes you've played, you're doing something right. So if Trajan Langdon knows anything, he knows ball.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up the minutes to points ratio because that segues us into the New York Knicks matchup that the Pistons won by 38 points. But the reason I bring up the points matching minutes is because we saw Kevin Huerter for the first time, and he did play 8 minutes. Yes, they were kind of garbage time minutes just because it was such a blowout. But in those 8 minutes, he scored 8 points. And this was a game that the Pistons won soundly, obviously, and Cade only played 22 minutes. He had 11 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, these types of stats. So it's not like Cade even went absolutely off. It was a well-rounded win for the Detroit Pistons. You mentioned Dennis Jenkins, 18 points. I'll talk about for my player of the week. Tobias Harris had a great game. Isaiah Stewart has been playing out of his mind. We need to talk about Isaiah Stewart more, Beef Stew, because he has been playing so good this year. Against the New York Knicks, he had 15 points in 6 of 7 shooting, 1 of 2 from the 3-point line. Oh man, he's been so good. But I think beating the Knicks as soundly as we did, as much as they were missing guys, and that is a good point that Knicks fans can bring up, and it's valid, but these are statement wins that nationally people are recognizing. And no matter what, when you're missing players in the NBA, everybody is playing at such a high level in the NBA. To still beat a NBA level team by 38 points is absolutely ridiculous. Ryan, what were your thoughts on this game against the Knicks? Because I know we hate them.
Yeah, so you mentioned it, the injury bug. So obviously the Knicks fans are quick to throw out that they were without Karl Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby, blah, 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 blah. We were without Jalen Duren.
Yep.
So and we won by that large of a margin. Like that's drastic. It was not even close any stretch of the way. And Isaiah Stewart put on an absolute clinic. And yes, it's Mitchell Robinson, but Mitchell Robinson, I would take over a handful of the other opposing bigs in the league right now. So realistically, outside of him, the rotation of guys that the Knicks still have at the arsenal, it's mainly they're going to go and stick with a small ball lineup, which means Isaiah Stewart is playing small ball basketball against even smaller guys than he typically would, and yet is still as dominant as he is. And I understand you're going, oh, well, he's a big man. Of course, he's going to be dominant against a three playing the 4 or 5 position. Yeah, that is true. However, Isaiah Stewart really isn't that tall. He's only 6'8". So I'm just throwing it out there, even though he is only that height, and yes, they're playing small ball basketball, he is still playing at an efficient clip. And you take him out of the mix, Paul Reed still had 12 points. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who we have in. We're beating the Knicks right now. And I don't care if you have OG Anunoby out or Karl Anthony Towns. The fact
Hmm.
that our second string center and our third string center both put up double digit scoring against Mitchell Robinson, who honestly I would take Mitchell Robinson over Paul Reed any day. So the fact that he still had 12, like we're playing great basketball right now. I don't think the Knicks are really all that. I think they are a very good team. I think they have a lot of talent on that roster, up and down. Outside of the starting five, they actually have some decent role players on their bench, most notably Jordan Clarkson. I personally love Clarkson. I've always loved him. I've always wanted him to be on the Pistons. But like they have a decent slew of guys. Like there's not a lot of bad guys on that team. And yet we were still able to win that game. And we played everybody. The fact that Chaz Lanier got in and had what, 7 points in 6 minutes, and then you throw in Kevin Herter. The only reason why he got into the game is because JB is just trying to get a little bit more of like a, okay, let's ease you in a little bit. Let's see how you play with the team kind of thing. And he was 8 points, 8 minutes, efficiency. Like every single player that he plugged in at any point in time was having a good game. It didn't seem to matter who. So yes, you can say Karl Anthony Towns was out, OG Anunoby was out. Yes. However, we were up without Jalen Duren, and our bench was playing like the guys that really don't ever step on the floor were playing better than your starters. So yes, we own the Knicks.
I always talk about how the box score of games tells a story, and it's no different for the Pistons versus Knicks matchup. When you look up and down the box score for the Knicks, it shows us that in 25 minutes, Josh Hart scored 5 points. In 21 minutes, Muhammad scored 4 points. Mitchell Robinson, like you mentioned, 4 points. Jalen Brunson in 31 minutes scored 12. Mikal Bridges, who had their best performance, 19 points in 28 minutes. So it's showing us that the Pistons not are not just finding rhythm offensively, but defensively, they are just shutting down teams. And that's what they did to the New York Knicks. For the Knicks to only score 80 points in a game is just crazy. And I think that and we saw it a bit in the playoff series last season against the Knicks, how Asar Thompson, when guarding Jalen Brunson, was very effective. And I think we're going to continue to see, and we've seen it a lot this season, Asar Thompson guard the point guard for the opposing team because, well, one, Cade has a lot of size, so he can guard the 1 through 3 position. So, you can, that thankfully for JB Bickerstaff can really change his rotations and who he has guarding who. So I think it's fun bringing up the win against the Knicks, not just because I love beating down on the Knicks, but they were a team that we kind of measured ourselves up to last year, along with Houston Rockets, things like that. Um, and the fact that we're just kind of handling them very soundly as of recent shows us where the Pistons are at and that they're not a team that's just going to fall apart like we've seen in previous years. So it teaches us a lot looking at the box score of games again, big time games against teams like the New York Knicks. I also want to mention because there were a lot of moves in the Eastern Conference as far as trades. James Harden ends up with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are in the same division as us, the Central Division. I know divisions don't really matter much in the NBA. Maybe we should talk about that one day, why um, divisions in the NBA just do not matter. But so, we saw them make a move. We saw the Washington Wizards make a move for Trae Young and Anthony Davis, which Anthony Davis ended up being out for the rest of the season. So okay, I guess, but we do play the Washington Wizards 4 times a year, so maybe they'll be okay. I'm not quite sure, but we saw the Eastern Conference make quite a bit of moves, and I think it's because of the movement the Pistons are having and the fact that no one can compete with them in the Eastern Conference. It's the Western Conference that we're having these big time matchups against, Denver Nuggets, Houston Rockets, Oklahoma City Thunder, for example. Um, would you agree with that sentiment, Ryan, that the Eastern Conference did make quite a few moves because they're scared of the Pistons? Is that a hot take?
I wouldn't necessarily say scared of the Pistons. However, I would say a lot of the moves that were made were due in part because of how well the Pistons have played. Because if you think about the East right now, it's wide open. Like it really is wide open. I know the Pistons have
Yeah.
been as dominant as they have been, but outside of the Pistons, you have Boston who is hit or miss. If well, they're playing great basketball to be honest. But if you add in Jason Tatum, who knows what they look like? Because yes, they made the move for Vooch, from Boston there, Nikola Vucevic, not Boston, Chicago. So that was a big time pickup for them. And then obviously they have Derek White still. But it's one thing to make all these moves and play great basketball, but to have your guy that's been injured all year long come back into the mix, and then there's a shift in there. Who's to say what happens with Boston? New York,
Yeah.
they've been dealing with an injury bug all season long. So realistically, they could definitely fall a little bit in the standings, and that gives opportunity for other teams in the East to make a push forward. But I really
Mhm.
think outside of those three teams, there's not necessarily anyone in particular that I'm sitting there going like, "Ooh, watch out for." Maybe Cleveland just because it's Cleveland, but I don't think James Harden that trade gives them anything. If anything, I
Right.
think they kind of lost that trade because you go from Darius Garland, who is a true point guard and can actually facilitate the offense, to a guy in James Harden that is much older. And yes, he plays the point guard position, but he plays the point guard position because he's being forced to play the point guard position. It's not his true form. His true
Mhm.
form is a shooting guard. And realistically, if you go to Phoenix, it didn't work in Bradley Beal and Devin Booker for a reason. So I'm a little skeptical to say that Donovan Mitchell and James Harden are going to work side by side, hand in hand together. So realistically, I don't think that's much of an issue. So I think it really is the Pistons, Celtics, and Knicks to lose. But I think the East is very wide open right now.
All right. Before we wrap up episode number 33 of season 3, we have to talk about our player shout out of the week. And mine is Tobias Harris. He's my shout out this week because of his performance against the New York Knicks. He had 15 points and 6 rebounds off of a couple games missed due to a shoulder injury. I believe shoulder. I'm not quite sure on that. Yeah, whatever. Ryan, what is your player shout out for this week?
Isaiah Stewart, it has to be
Yeah,
done.
gotta.
He played phenomenal basketball against the Knicks. He hit clutch shot after clutch shot after clutch shot down the stretch. And yes, it wasn't very close towards the end, but the fact is he's going down the floor and then boom, three-pointer. That's that, and it just seals the deal. Like that's game. We don't even
Hmm.
have to watch or play any more basketball because we know what the result is going to be. And he was just phenomenal in that. And outside of just even tonight, that most recent game against the Knicks, he's been on a tear lately. All season long, he's
Absolutely.
had a very good season. It's been very under the radar, I might add, because not a lot of people are talking about him. But he, outside of defense, at least, outside of defense, it's like he's having a very, very good, quiet offensive season. But defensively, my goodness, he's a juggernaut.
Make sure to comment below your thoughts on today's episode, what you think about Jalen Duren pulling out of the dunk contest, if you're happy with Trajan Langdon and the Pistons signing Danis Jenkins, and if you've been happy with the Pistons' recent play, we'd love to know what you guys have to say. That will do it for episode number 33 of season 3. Make sure to like and subscribe. We will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.